Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce saying, Joyce, we have so much to talk about, including we saw The Whale. And so we could talk about Brendan Fraser finally. And there's a trailer for Emancipation, Joyce, with Will Smith.
Another trailer.
Another trailer. And another interview with Will Smith and Antoine Fuqua that Vanity Fair published, where Will answered a lot of questions, but not anything about slapping Chris Rock.
But you're burying the lead here.
Yes, we're starting with Babylon, Joyce. We saw it. I think I just got out of the screening. We're recording this on Thursday morning at 10:30, and the screening was yesterday afternoon. It's a very long movie.
Just like our entire day.
Yeah,
literally our entire day.
I was like, it started. The screening was set for 1. It probably started at like 1:15. Joyce, we were in a theater at the AMC Lincoln Square with the best and brightest of the film Twitter world, and then a lot of
it was a SAG
members,
screening.
and
yeah,
then a lot of actors.
The woman in front of me, she kept asking the people around me. We didn't sit together because like at SAG screenings, it's every man for himself.
Right.
So we saw each other from a distance.
Yeah, I waved at you.
Yeah. I saw the back of your head. But like, yeah, this woman in front of me, she just kept asking people around us, like, are you on the nom-com? Like,
nom-com
everyone just kept saying no because she just wanted to talk to someone on a nom-com.
Yes. It was a lot of nom-com. Nom-com was a lot of a buzzword. Nom-com. Are you nom-com? And I was like, no, I'm press.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, get the hell out of here. We don't want to talk to you. And I was like, great, I'll just go sit over there on the aisle. There was we could talk about this. So we're not allowed to review Babylon. We're allowed to give our impressions, and obviously we'll talk about its status in the Oscar race. And we have not talked about this. I'll be curious to see what you think. But I will say I had a couple of young actors, I guess, behind me, and they were infatuated with the movie. It sounded like they were very positive on it. There's there's a opening. The opening scene is like a big giant bacchanal, kind of outrageous party, and it ends after about 30 minutes with the title card. And the guys behind me are like, "This is the greatest movie ever," and I was like, "It's not wrong."
Debaucherous, bacchanalian antics. Yes.
And then I know you were texting me, and you said you had an older
I had
gentleman.
my friend.
Yes.
In my aisle, there was an older gentleman.
Yeah.
He was very, very feeble. Everyone had to stand for him to get into the aisle. He sat right in the middle. And before the movie started, he was talking to his friend and giving a lot of hot takes on other movies.
Sure.
Just, fiery hot. And then when the movie was over, like during the credits, he just said to his friend, "That was disgusting."
So that's
and then wait, the best part. So there was a Q&A after with like the entire cast basically, and Damien Chazelle. And Jean Smart was talking about a scene in which in the background there are naked men. So she was joking, saying like, "Oh, when I realized that, I told Damien, well, no one's going to pay attention to me now." And then Josh Horowitz, the moderator, was like, "Well, now when people rewatch the movie, they'll look for the naked men." And then the older gentleman in my aisle was just like, "Who's going to sit through that twice?" And then I'm not even joking. Literally a minute later, Q&A is not over. He just gets up and leaves.
Wow. So, so as maybe if you're watching this or listening to this, you have ascertained that the movie is pretty polarizing, I would say. The response in LA...
I don't know if there is a movie this year that has elicited such a wide array of reactions.
Correct. Which I was expecting going in because we saw on Monday, it screened in LA on Monday. So the cooler people in LA got to see it first. And the responses were all over the map. People saying it's a total mess and was a huge misfire, and people saying it's amazing. And then that was kind of like what I felt like the responses were from New York, though I think the New York people I've talked to were more positive on it seemingly than in LA, but I've talked to a lot of people who were not positive on it. Joyce, what did you think? I guess we can't review it, but I guess it's the reviews are embargoed till further notice, Joyce.
Until further notice, so like 2 days before it opens, basically.
Sure, I guess.
Like the winter solstice.
But you could do reactions.
Yeah, so the entire time I was watching it, I was like, this is such a Chris movie. That's it. As we knew going in. It was like, this is a total Chris movie. It's not a Joyce movie because it's double the runtime of a Joyce movie, as we know. It's 3 hours and 8 minutes.
Yeah.
But just completely wild, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, as we've just already described based on our neighbors' reactions in the theater.
Correct. Here was my takeaway. I would say it is a Chris movie. I definitely there was many things that I thought were like outrageously good. I just
There
loved so
are
much of it.
like a lot of stuff I enjoy, and then just like it's overly long, really. It's too long, and then it's very ambitious, and I respect that. Like, it's a huge ass swing. This is maximalist to the extreme, like all caps
Yes.
maximalist, and I kind of respect that. But there's still elements where it's like the runtime, it feels like there is like a really solid movie in there, like a really, really great movie in there, if you just kind of whittle it down and make it tighter.
So here were two things that I think Damien Chazelle said after the Q&A that I thought were like very applicable to the movie. And I agree with everything he said. I enjoyed it. Like this, I did think it was, so here's what I would say. It's very long. It's over 3 hours, obviously, but I was never I felt the length, and there's certain parts. There's a part, and we're not going to spoil it, and obviously this is not a review, but I would say there's a part later in the movie, much later, where Tobey Maguire shows up. You've seen it.
That was my favorite part. I love Tobey.
So Tobey Maguire himself is amazing, and he is like, it's howlingly funny, and I was just like, and he's terrifying, and it's really great.
He's so creepy, and it's hilarious.
And then it devolves from there though into like an extended, like obvious metaphor for like Dante's Inferno, basically, and they like descend into hell, and then there's like, and
it's a very long detour from the main story.
Detour is perfect, and it is like, if you've seen Boogie Nights, it's absolutely like, if not a direct homage or intentionally so, I would imagine it is, because the whole movie is structured and feels like Boogie Nights at times. Is like the Alfred Molina scene in Boogie Nights, basically, and that kind of tension, but it's in two different locations, whatever. But from that point through, like, there's an end, and then there's like a little bit of an epilogue. I was like,
there are more endings in this movie than in Lord of the Rings.
In that section, I was like, it's long, but I will say this, it's never boring. And I was
it's never boring, and I think that's a plus.
So it's incredibly
you're not going to forget you watched this movie.
No, it's incredibly watchable. And I was like, never like, I honestly didn't even look at my watch except for right there towards the end, because I was like, this has to be ending. And it was like 4 o'clock. And I was like, well, I guess we got like another 20 minutes, because there's still,
well, we also started like 15 minutes after, like you said. Well, so also like, another thing, my direct neighbor to my right.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a lot of endings, a lot of parts where it seems like the movie could have and should have ended, and then especially one very like tense scene, and it feels like it's over, but then there's like a short montage of things, and then it's like it goes into that epilogue, like you mentioned,
right?
And the guy next to me, when that happened, was just like, oh god.
So yeah, so definitely, like I said, incredibly long, but I think it's like these are 3 things I took away from the thing. With Brad Pitt at the Q&A, Joyce, we got to see Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, all the famous.
I mean, I've seen them before, so like,
I never did, so I was like pretty impressed. Josh Horowitz, way to go, buddy.
I have a photo of Margot Robbie because I wore one of my Mighty Ducks shirts, and she's a Mighty Ducks fan.
That's great.
I wore that just for her.
Brad Pitt was like, I read the script and I was like, this is great. What's going to get cut? Which is an LOL line, and maybe like tells on the movie that even producer Brad Pitt, who's like made a lot of incredibly popular movies as a producer, was like, what's going to get cut out of this 180-page script? And then the takeaway was Damien Chazelle was like, nothing, because I'm going to do a page a minute. And it does fly like that, like, because the editing is so tight. It just is like a whirlwind movie, even if it's incredibly long. And like, you're right, there are parts
they did cut some things. They didn't mention it in our Q&A, but they mentioned some cut things in the LA Q&A.
Interesting.
That we can't mention since it's
I guess ask me about it. We can talk about this after, because I'd be curious. There's a couple of things I would say from a storytelling perspective, and not a review, but I was like a little, not muddy, but I was just unclear of like a certain leaps that are taken with a couple of characters.
Yeah, and also, well, the original script is online. I have not read it.
Okay,
you can Google and find it.
Mostly, my not an issue, but my thing was like mostly with the Manny character played by Diego Calva. There was a couple of things where I was just like, how did we get from there to there? I guess, and I was like, maybe that could have been fleshed out a little more. The other things that they said in the Q&A was Damien Chazelle was like, this is a love letter to movies and a hate letter to Hollywood,
which is a great elevator pitch.
And it is the movie.
And it's very accurate too.
It is, he actually does get it. That is what it is. And it's like, it is basically, the message of the movie is like, man, this industry sucks and everybody is kind of gonna shoot up and spit out whether they want to or not, but the end result is movies, and is that worth it, basically? And that kind of is the theme of all his movies. Like I rewatched Whiplash and I rewatched La La Land before watching Babylon, and it's like those movies are really about like what's the cost of like being a creative person, and is that cost worth it? And like I think in La La Land, it's a much more romanticized version of that. And you would say it is, because like these are two people who end up successfully in their career, but are maybe not going to connect in love, but they like respect that they were there for each other at a specific time. And Whiplash is deranged because there's like, that is incredibly toxic relationship. And these two men who kind of hate each other are now elevating themselves. And Babylon kind of like splits the difference, I guess.
Babylon is a much more like direct condemnation of like the politicking of Hollywood, and all like the red tape you go through, and just like the bullshit, really, especially back then with like, you know, that like when they're transitioning to talkies, and then also, you know, like the Hays Code back then and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, this one, he's much more in your face about the vilification of it, but it is also very much a love letter to movies and cinema. And how many times did they say magic in it? The magic of movies.
Definitely a lot. And it's definitely like
magic.
It's definitely, the meme is definitely the movies by Vin Diesel, right? Like I was surprised it actually wasn't in it at the end.
Yeah, and then there's like a scene with Jean Smart, if she were to get in, this would be her Oscar clip, obviously, but between her and Brad Pitt, because she plays like, you know, like a gossip columnist, and she has this monologue basically explaining to him like, you know, movie stars, you know, your heyday could be short-lived, but like you'll always be immortal in movies. Like that's the magic and power of movies. You know, like you'll die one day. Like you're not gonna be famous forever, but your movies, your work will live on, and people will discover it until the end of time.
Right. So that, I think, really comes through the movie. And I guess if you're a non-fan of the movie, you would say it comes through over and over and over and over and over again, and maybe we could have had like one or two less underscores of that point. The other thing that Damien Chazelle said was, and he said this of his cast, which I kind of agreed with, and the movie itself, was he's like, I made this, and everybody in this is like, we're never going to make another movie. And I basically like just directed this and wrote this movie as if this is the last movie I'd ever make. And I'm like, yes, it absolutely feels like that, because there's every idea.
Completely maximalist.
It's completely maximalist. And I do, like you said, I really appreciate that. And that was one of the things like where I was like, oh, I definitely want to watch it again. I don't like, it wasn't a movie where I was like immediately like La La Land. I know you're not the biggest fan of, but I like love La La Land, and I rewatched it and I'm like, full stop, fully in love with this movie. It's so good. And this movie I was like not in love with on that level, but I was like, I absolutely want to watch it again. And it has like a lot of really good ideas. And it's kind of thing I think that free or detached from the award season aspect of it would be like a movie that I think is like going to stand the test of time, because people will be fascinated by it and like what it's trying to do. But I don't think you can always say that about like every awards movie, I guess.
Yeah, it's the movie is exhausting, just like Nellie Leroy herself. It takes a lot out of you. So you know, they should have put in an intermission, just like how movies back in the day had intermissions. So
I actually thought that too. I saw RRR. I think we mentioned this like a couple weeks ago, and there's an intermission in that, and I was like, all these movies should have intermissions. RRR is 3 hours, just as long as Babylon.
This is 3 hours and 8 minutes.
But it's like, if you have an intermission, it actually feels shorter, because you have like a 2-hour movie and then like a 1-hour movie. Basically, that's how RRR is kind of split off. And this could have easily done that. There's many points where you could have been like flashy intermission title. I think you would have kind of gotten bonus points for that. I don't know, but
well, it would have been fitting with like what it was, you know, doing, the movie itself, like paying homage at that time. And I don't know, like it's gonna have a lot of takes, this movie.
We've already seen a lot, Joyce. A lot of people. So we mentioned this a little bit. I think you kind of touched on this, but it's also, I would say, or maybe one of your seatmates said this, it's incredibly gross. That
was the older gentleman. That was disgusting.
So like I'm sure if you've seen the tweets, you were very much excited about like the opening scene includes an elephant literally taking a huge dump on two men.
Elephant diarrhea. Yeah.
Completely like
exploding.
Endless.
It's not just like one. Like,
no, it's like a Will Ferrell movie a lot, or like it's like an SNL sketch. And there's with the amount of poop, and then there's projectile vomiting. There is
a lot of projectile vomiting, a lot of urinating.
Yes, golden showers.
A lot of cocaine.
A lot of cocaine, but I was like, people were definitely like pearl clutching that. I felt like a little bit. I'm just like, I don't care. I'm like,
I don't care.
People were doing drugs all the time, and like
people still do drugs now. Like,
right. That didn't really bother me, but a lot of like bodily fluid. So like we said, like there's vomit, poop, pee.
I think the thing is, it's not that like people are not used to any of these things. I guess, you don't usually see an elephant taking a huge shit on your face or something.
No. Can't say I've seen that before, Joyce.
No, but I think it's more that like generally speaking, people have this like idealized image of the 1920s just based on the movies that were produced back then, and people seem a lot more proper, but it's like, no, Hollywood has always been depraved behind the scenes. And this was also back in the silent era when there were just like no rules. It was really when they transitioned to talkies that it became like, oh my God, like people can hear us, there's sound. And not all of the silent film stars made that successful transition to talkies because like they would have quote unquote unsuitable voices for sound, which is covered in the movie as well.
Yes.
But like, in the silent era, it's just like, do whatever the hell you want.
Right. And it comes through in the movie. And I would say like, I guess the other thing I was thinking is like this is being positioned because of the release date, and obviously like when it like the way we live now, that it's like an awards movie. And I guess you just wouldn't imagine like an awards movie having like an SNL style projectile vomiting scene in it. It's ostensibly like a serious movie. That was, I was wondering if people like brush up. I found that like that scene there's a scene where Margot Robbie is going to projectile vomit, I believe, and I found that scene pretty funny. But I was like, I wonder if people
there were a lot of laughter. I wouldn't say it was like hearty laughter, but like definitely LOLs.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's weird because it's like one of the people I spoke to who is not as big of a fan of it was like, it's like, is Damien Chazelle thought of as funny? And he's doing funny stuff in the movie. I actually, it worked for me. I laughed a lot. I thought there are a lot of
there are funny moments.
But I was like, I could see people brushing up against that. So Joyce, award stuff. I had Babylon a lot of places before we saw it, and I will say I took it out of one and I added it in like a couple others. So do you want to go through our most updated predictions here?
Did you put it at number one is the question.
No, I have Fableman still number one. I had Babylon, I think, at 7, and I still have it at 7.
Same. I haven't changed Best Picture.
So I've moved stuff around in Best Picture, and I've actually added and subtracted one thing and added something, but not because of Babylon. Just so if you want to, let's do Babylon, then we can come back to that. But I was like, I think we've seen this before. Like certainly, like the responses reminded me a little bit of like Don't Look Up, where it's an incredible.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Don't Look Up and Vice, just kind of, but not polarizing to those extremes where those two movies had a lot of hate and a lot of passionate love too. And I don't think this will be the response to that would be that polarized, but I think it's still divisive in that way.
Yes.
But I think that's good for it too.
Me too. And I think that's why it will get into Best Picture, but I don't know if it could win. That would be my take.
I don't really see that. I think just based on our seatmates, our different experiences.
Yes. But I feel like absolutely could get in for Best Picture, which I've had it in, and nothing changed my mind there. So that was it. The one thing we don't have to sidetrack on this, I dropped Tar. We could talk about this later, and I put Avatar in actually because I'm like back on.
You have both of them in. I have Tar and Avatar.
Well, I have She Said still. I'm gonna ride that one into the ground. For director Joyce, I had Damien Chazelle in, and I still have Damien Chazelle in for Babylon.
I don't know what to do with him because I've thought about dropping him even before Babylon. Right. But my other issue is like I don't know who I would replace him with because I have a lot of options.
Right.
So I feel like maybe I'll just stick with him until I figure out who I want to replace him with because I don't really know if I want to drop my other 4. Like I'm not dropping Spielberg.
What do you have right now?
I have the Daniels.
Yeah.
I have Todd Field, who I could also drop. and Sarah Polley, who is more of a hope diction. Like, I'm not really sure how solid she is. I think we've discussed this before, I think the only person here who is locked is Steven Spielberg.
I agree. Before I saw Babylon, I was actually going to drop Chazelle as well. And then, because I wanted to put James Cameron in for Avatar. And now I put James Cameron in over Todd Field. And I kept Sarah Polley. And like you said, I think it's a hope diction a little bit, because I don't feel like there's any buzz on women talking right now. It obviously hasn't come out yet, and they're going to ramp up probably around after Thanksgiving. But I'm just like a little nervous about that, I guess. Breaking through.
Yeah, I don't know. I can see. I mean, I don't have Mara McDonough, who I would personally nominate.
I would put him in too, but I did not. I took him out actually because I kept Chazelle basically. I would say it's like we said, it's the most movie, and I think the directing in the movie is unbelievable. There's so many sequences that I just was like blown away by, and the filmmaking is awesome. And so like I think he will get in as a past winner. I feel like the branch will appreciate the work. I feel, but I guess we'll see. Even though it's very long.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say like how they feel about him, like overall. I mean, I get the director's manage specifically, but like overall, because like Whiplash did well, and obviously La La Land, but then First Man, which I enjoyed, was just a total flop. Like, they did not care about that
right
at all. So
that was a weird year, because you had First Man and Beale Street, and both those movies I think are great. And I actually think Beale Street is better than Moonlight, and neither one of those movies took off. I guess that's a bad pun. Yikes. So anyway, I kept Chazelle in. I have Spielberg still winning. Nothing has changed at the top of my list.
I might just move him down a little bit, because I had him in second. So
okay,
maybe I'll just move him down.
I have him in fourth, Chazelle. I think he'd be like.
I think that's fair. Like I can see him having a lot of fans. But
there's just so many scenes where I was just like, how did they do this? Kind of, and it's like not cheating. Like, he literally has like 400 extras in a scene. You know what I mean? It's like you don't really see that anymore.
He's shooting a movie of a movie.
Right. And it's just this like incredible, the gumption to do it, and the idea that they gave him the money to do it is just fascinating to me. I can't, especially Paramount, which is like kind of circling the wagons on what they're even doing anymore, right? With like movies and like all these studios. That's the other thing. He's like made this big studio movie at a time when like our director's going to get the chance to burn this money anymore, basically. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it'll also be interesting to see how this does at the box office.
I mean, good Lord. I don't even want to hazard a guess, but I would say not great, based on the length and subject matter. For actor's choice, here's one where I did make a change. I put Margot Robbie in. I have my top 4, and I had Jennifer Lawrence in 5th, and now I've moved her out for Margot Robbie. I
knew you were going to do this. I knew it.
I mean, like, very predictable, obviously. She's
classic
awesome.
Chris.
She is like so good, and it's just a full-blown insane performance. I thought everything she does is just like fucking wild, basically, for lack of a better phrase. I just like it was very much and the other thing is, Joyce, I felt like it's the only performance like it in the field. Right? Like, none of the other actresses, as good as all these are going to the lengths that she is. So I think that would get her in over like Viola Davis or Jennifer Lawrence or Olivia Colman.
I did not change anyone there, so I still have my same. I think she can get in, and it's the character is, like I said, very exhausting. But Margot is balls to the wall.
It's just
and it's a lot. This movie is just too much movie.
It's the most movie.
It's the most movie. It's the most movie to end all most movies.
It's basically like her Wolf of Wall Street performance plus I, Tonya, to me.
But like even more so, like it's it's just like there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
But like she gets a lot to do, and then because like her character is obviously an actress, so there are numerous scenes where she just does take after take of something.
It's awesome. It's like, that's really cool.
Yeah. And So, I mean, you could also be like, is that just like a function of the editing, like what she does in those scenes, whatever. But like, no, she is really entertaining in it, and I can see her getting in. I don't think she is competitive for the win.
No,
though. I would just, if I put her in, I would put her in the fifth slot.
I have her in the fifth slot. Yes.
Yeah.
The performance, Josh Horowitz actually mentioned this at the Q&A in reference to one of the scenes. It does feel like Leo and Wolf of Wall Street. I mean,
he
Leo
told her to send that scene to Leo.
Leo and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think there's a really she's obviously much more manic, but it is very similar in a couple of the scenes, I feel like. So Leo got in, right? And I feel like she could also.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, like that, if you assume like the top four are safe, like that last slot I can see going to her or Viola or Olivia.
Yeah.
And then there's still Naomi Ackie to come.
Right.
So
this remains an incredibly competitive category. And
remember when after Michelle Williams moved to lead and there was a campaign on film Twitter to get Margot in supporting?
I was thinking of that during the movie because I was like, she's in almost every scene and then she kind of disappears towards the end. But I was just like, she is so far and away the lead of this movie.
Yeah.
It's like hilarious that anybody ever thought she'd be supporting. I can't even imagine that was.
Well, I think it was more that like, oh, Michelle is infiltrating the lead field, so we want to get Margot a win.
And I will say, like, the other thing, not to sidetrack on Best Actress, but I was like, every day I'm inching closer to just putting Michelle Williams in first for Best Actress.
Remember when you asked me if she would even get into lead?
Yeah. Now I'm like, she's gonna win.
Look at you now.
Yeah. I think she might win. For sure. I have her in second still. For Best Actor, Joyce, I did not change anything, but I will say I love Diego Calva in the movie. I'd not seen him in anything else, obviously, because I'm not as much of a cineast as maybe I should be. So for me, it was like the first experience of him as a performer. Boy, he rules. I just like loved him. He's so captivating, very charismatic. The character, like I said, I had some questions about, but his performance is awesome. I could see him getting in because, like we said, this is a very like short amount, a short, soft category, Joyce. What would you say? I don't even know, but I don't have him in, but I could see him getting in. But I kept Tom Cruise in my fifth spot.
I enjoyed him a lot too. It's the performance. He's basically like Manny is basically just like the straight man. So he does a lot of reacting to things. He doesn't get as much crazy things to do as Margot or even Brad.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he's very capable, and he has a lot of the scenes, even like the reactions, demand a lot out of him. Like he has a lot of very intense moments in the movie with opposite other people. So it's a great performance. I think he's fine for the Globe nomination.
Yeah.
I did not do anything to my Best Actor lineup. Again, just like in Best Actress, I think anyone could get into that fifth slot.
Yeah.
But for completely different reasons.
Yes. The thing I would say too is I was like, if Paramount ever pulls the cord on like deciding to remake The Godfather, I think he would play Michael. Like he felt like a young Pacino, and like the character, honestly, a couple of times I was just like, they're making it like, I think Chazelle has mentioned The Godfather as like one of the many obvious inspirations to the movie. And I was just like, man, he's like literally like they have him like corrupting like Pacino in The Godfather 2, but it's like Godfather and Godfather 2 in the same movie, basically, I'd say. I mean, he's really good. He's really quite good, but I don't have him in yet. I could see that changing, I guess, if people start really rallying around the movie and his performance. I mean, he could get in, like you said.
He would need a lot more like support to just like build that momentum as also a quote unquote newcomer.
Right. For supporting actress choice, I did make a change here for Babylon. I put Jean Smart in. You mentioned it, she has the one scene, but man, that is a great scene. She's so good. And I don't know if she could get in on the one scene. I mean, she's in it more than the one scene, but that is like the top. But
that
line.
Is that would be her Oscar clip.
That would be her Oscar clip. And like the reason she gets in because of that, it's not like a one scene performance like Judd Hirsch in Fabelman. She's in it like a decent amount. But I just thought she was so good. And I definitely could see myself moving her out, a week or two from now because of the glow of Babylon has dissipated. And I'm always going to go to the next new shiny person. But I just thought she was great. And I think if the industry is primed to celebrate Jean Smart, then this is not a better chance they will have to do it. So that's why I put her in.
I'll just say right now I didn't do any changes. So I did not change supporting actors. I enjoyed Jean a lot too, and yeah, that was a great scene. I think in the original script she had more scenes with Margot that were cut.
Interesting.
Because she is a journalist and she writes for Photoplay.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like maybe if the movie were shorter, I would feel more confident in her. But I feel like even though she does have that really great scene, the movie is so long and it's so late in the movie that it kind of gets lost in how insane the movie is as a whole.
Yeah. Not wrong.
Not
wrong. But yeah, so I don't know. I put her, I just think I'm like, I don't know. The Academy's not super sentimental, and like she's definitely more of a TV star than a movie star.
So who did you drop for her?
So I've made a lot of changes in that category. I actually put Hong Chow in too for The Whale, which we saw this week and we'll talk about afterwards.
I've always had her in, so.
And then I have Jessie Buckley, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Carey Mulligan. I dropped Claire Foy, and I dropped
interesting.
And I dropped Kerry Condon.
Wow, rude.
So I dropped Claire Foy because I'm nervous about the women talking in general. And I'm like, it's so quiet. And I don't think it could support the popularity of the movie cannot support 2 acting nominations in the same category, especially when there are so many other options. This is the category that we've talked about.
This is the most unsettled category. And yeah.
And then Kerry Condon I dropped, even though I love her in Banshees. And I would have her in, I guess, if I pull Jean back out. I just am like, if you're putting Jean Smart versus Kerry Condon on this, like at least for me, I was like, I think Jean would get in based on name recognition and the bigness of the movie and the performance. And while Kerry is amazing and like I love her in the movie, she's still like relatively unknown for most people. But maybe the international part of the Academy would support her further and push her through. I would have her in 6th, I guess, at the moment. But that's who I dropped.
I don't know if I would ever drop Carrie.
Right.
So
I mean, logically, I should have dropped like Carey Mulligan, I guess, but I'm not. I'm going to go down with that.
You're just into She Said.
I am. I'm going to go down with that ship. So maybe I'll drop Carey Mulligan and put Kerry Condon in, and there you go.
Yeah. No. I feel. I mean, I have Carrie in 4th. But I feel pretty good about her. I mean, this could obviously change in like a month. But I think like if you watch Banshees, I think she is if not your favorite, like definitely top 2 of like the quartet of like performances in there. So I feel like it's just kind of hard to ignore. And then she also doesn't have like the internal competition issue that Barry and Brendan had either, right. And the category is so open. So, and I feel like that is a stronger movie than some of these other ones in here.
Yeah, too. No, I think that's fair.
I wouldn't drop her.
Okay, I mean,
but I don't have Jean Smart. I just like I don't. So I'll just say right now, I didn't put Babylon into any acting categories. So
okay, so I did one more. Yeah, I'll do after next. That was it. So then for supporting actor choice, I did put Brad in because first of all, he is almost a co-lead. I'm not surprised that there was the discussion that he would be a lead.
He's also the most famous person in there.
Well, he's the most famous person in there, and he's like in it a lot more. He was in it a lot more than I expected. Like he is like definitely.
Really?
Yeah, he was.
What did you expect him like?
I expected more like the Jean kind of thing because I figured it would be Margot Robbie and Diego Calva, but I guess I should have expected an 186-minute movie would have a lot of room for Brad.
But did you not know he was playing like this film star?
I knew he was playing like a silent film star who like has a difficult transition to the talkies, but I just figured that would be like a smaller part of the story because it felt like it was definitely going to be more focused on Margot Robbie and then like Manny, the Diego Calva character. But no, Brad's in it a ton. And I understand he's incredibly fraught at the moment. And I just thought his performance was awesome. And I think it felt at times, I mean, it's a commentary, more of a commentary on his own career than even like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It did feel like that. And I think that could go a long way to getting him in, but I have him in 5th and I could easily knock him out. There's another category where there's a lot of competition, but I just thought he was, I don't know, he was in it more than I expected. He was better than I expected. I just think it's like a really good Brad Pitt performance.
But I liked him a lot too. I would say, I mean, Toby was my favorite. I just love Toby so much, but he's not getting in.
No, but he's
Toby
amazing.
also got the "and" credit in the credits, and I was like, my guy.
Toby's amazing.
I love him so much. Good. And then also you know what was on TV last night? Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh. I got double Toby last night. Wow. But yeah, I would say Brad was probably my second favorite performance in the movie. I had him in for a while, but I dropped him a couple weeks ago, and I have not put him back in. So in our odds, Ben Whishaw would be an easy in. I still don't have him in. I don't know if you do either. I have him in.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yes. I thought you took him out. And then
I took him out in like September, but then I put him back in only because I didn't feel comfortable having double Fablemans and double Banshees.
Right. And then Barry Keoghan would be next, and then Brad. So and then Brian Tyree Henry, who I actually took out to put Brad in, and then Eddie Redmayne, who I thought about putting back in, but I just have no room for him. I obviously, like I said, there's a lot of reasons why Brad Pitt would not get nominated for this. But I think he very easily could also get nominated for this. And the fact that he's a lead to me, or close to a lead, will give him a leg up on some of these other people in the category.
I think he's still like supporting. Like, I think their designations are fine. I think it will be actual category fraud if they actually ran him lead and Diego supporting.
So absolutely, that's true. And I'm not saying it's category fraud, but of all these supporting, like that I just mentioned, I feel like he's got the most performance.
Well, yeah, it's the most movie.
Right. So I'm like, that I think could help him compared to like a Ben Whishaw or a Barry Keoghan, both of whom I really like.
Every actor in Babylon will have the most of anything like if they get in. So.
Right. And this could be again, like we said, it's an incredibly polarizing movie, and people might just be like, I'm not doing this. And like, I could get no acting nominations like you have. But I do think those are the 3 that I felt were.
Yeah, I think they're all viable. And I would have them all in my head in like 6 or 7.
Right.
You know, I'm not like, even though I don't have them in my top 5 right now, like I can easily see them all getting in, and that should not be surprising. No. I just don't think right now like any of them are competitive to win.
No way. I agree with that.
Yeah.
No way.
I mean, like I think like the floor for this movie would be just text and Best Picture.
Yes.
And then I don't think it would max out, because I don't think it would be like La La Land in that way, which is a lot more, it's more of a consensus movie. This is
for sure.
Not, but it could definitely get high figures, like maybe close to 10. I wouldn't say 10, but like it could definitely get above the line nominations, not just below the line.
So if we move to below the line, we'll count. Do you want to count screenplays below the line, right, or no?
Screenplay's above the line.
So I don't have it in for screenplay. I had it in there, and I took
not had it in screenplay, so that has not changed.
So I had it in there in 5th, and I bumped it out, and I have After Sun in now because I think original screenplay is pretty weak beyond the top 4. So I have Fabelmans, Banshees, Everything Everywhere, Tar, and After Sun.
I still have Triangle of Sadness, which you hate. So
I don't hate it. I just haven't seen it. And also, like, no one seems to talk about it anymore. I don't know. I'm just like, the movie is kind of.
Yeah, well, people talk about it about Dolly.
Yeah, we got an email about that, Joyce. When we do listener emails, I won't read this one, but somebody was like, "Why are we ignoring Dolly DeLeon for supporting actress?"
We talked about her before.
We talked about her, but we don't have her in, and I guess this person was upset that we don't. Sorry.
I mean, you could go ahead and predict her. So
I don't think I'm going to predict.
I can't predict everybody.
No, I know that's the thing. You can't predict everybody, right? Like, I mean, how are you supposed to do it? But, yeah, that was from John, who wrote, "Big mistake, huge." So I appreciate the Pretty Woman reference, but
is this about like Ticket to Paradise too?
So. No, it was for Dolly DeLeon. Is she in Ticket to Paradise too?
Paradise.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So no
Julie
for
is
original
having a
song.
moment because that's been doing really well, the BO. So
Cinematography, I had it in and I actually moved it to the top. Babylon. I was like, this rules. Lena Sandgren, you crazy for this one, bro. That was like just unhinged stuff. It's so good.
I did not put it in there. I still have my Emancipation.
So you don't have it in, you have Emancipation, which we'll talk about, the trailer and the black and white photography or color desaturated photography of Robert Richardson. I just love the cinematography in Babylon, but I was like, I knew I would, like, based on the trailer, and so I have had it in. I think I had it in second. Now I moved it up to first. Costume design, I had it in. I still have it in. I don't have it winning, but it's there.
Yeah, like I kept it in all my below the line stuff, like all.
So here's one where I would say, like, this is fraud, and maybe I had it in editing and I kept it in editing.
I have it in editing.
Okay, because I think
it has the most editing.
it has the most editing, and while sometimes the length is a demerit, like, I still can't believe that, like, Thelma Schoonmaker wasn't nominated for Wolf of Wall Street, which I think is like the best edited movie, even more so than like Goodfellas and her other, her other nominations and wins. Irishman got in, and I would say, not as crisp on that.
This has a lot of editing, and then also the last scene, there is a montage that is so silly, but it has the most editing and the most music.
I want to read David Ehrlich, I think, for our who works at IndieWire, which we are sister sites with. Let me look. He had a funny tweet about the ending, which I really liked, and I liked the ending. But he was like, the ending is so galaxy brain silly dumb. I simply refuse not to love it. And I was just like,
I was laughing.
It's awesome though. I was like, it's a huge, like, what is this? It's a huge swing. I really liked it, and I think the editing will get in.
Listen,
and again,
I didn't hate it. I was just like, wow.
All of these people we're mentioning were like nominees or winners before. So Lena Sandgren won for
he's just worked with his team.
Tom Cross, the editor, he won for Whiplash, didn't win for La La Land. And then production design, I have it in, and I kept it in.
Yep, great sets, beautiful sets.
And score, I had it in and kept it in.
That I did not have that in score, Justin Hurwitz. But I can see him getting in. It's a very jazzy score, so kind of reminiscent of La La Land too. But also like the quieter music is also really good. I don't know, they snubbed them for First Man.
They snubbed First Man, and the First Man score is awesome and like very listenable. This is like La La Land Part 2, the score. A couple of the themes are actually like the same or in similar notes and seemingly, or as the La La Land music. And then there's also, again, it's like everything else in the movie, it's just way bigger and like more. So
yeah,
I think it'll get in. I was like, I really like this
tracks last week, I think, so you could listen to those.
Yeah, I did listen to it last night when I got home at 4 a.m. from seeing Babylon. And that's it. That's all we could predict right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think like I expected it would be a movie that gets a lot of nominations and doesn't really win a lot. And
it kind of feels like a American Hustle,
Irishman,
Gangs of New York.
Absolutely. I think it's a movie, like we're saying. At least I think that it will stand up beyond award season, even if it doesn't do well. It doesn't do well with the wins in award season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think its legacy, whatever it will be, will outlast this award season.
Absolutely.
And it is not boring.
No.
It's not forgettable.
No, it's absolutely nuts. And I think it'll be
people are going to talk about this movie. So
that's the thing. I already was like arguing with a couple of my friends who did not like it. And I was like, I really like talking about this movie. It's a fun movie to talk about and argue about. And I think that'll make it like a interesting thing. I mean, it'll easily be like the Oscar villain, right? Like,
I mean, like, maybe on like film Twitter, but I can see like the industry I could see just a completely varied like list of reactions from the industry too. Like, and see people like being really into it.
Yeah.
And then others being like, this is like denigrating our business,
Right.
our industry.
Right. Like, or that, man, this is disgusting that you
This
had
is
here.
disgusting.
Joyce, I'd love to know what that person thought of The Whale, which also
That was not one of the movies that he mentioned before Babylon
interesting.
started. He mentioned several other movies, but not The Whale.
So we saw The Whale on Monday, and before The Whale, I had Austin. I think I had moved Brendan briefly into first, but I've had Austin Butler there for most of the year, and then Colin, and then Brendan, and I still have Austin Butler, Colin, and Brendan now in my top 3 best actor. And the only thing I really changed after seeing The Whale was putting Hong Chow in, because I think she could be an easy coattail, and she's definitely like got the most media scenes, I guess, opposite Brendan in the movie.
I would say she's the most relatable character,
Right?
because she's his nurse, like, only friend too,
Yes.
who takes care of him, and she's kind of just like, she vocalizes what I would think a lot of the audience would be feeling and thinking, like, you need to go to hospital. Why don't you go to hospital?
Right.
And she also provides a lot of exposition for the audience as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I've always had her in. So I've had her and Brendan in.
So I put her in, obviously Brendan, I think. And I think my takeaway in the movie, Joyce, or the performance, is I'm really happy for Brendan Fraser, and he does a really good job in the movie. And it's an irresistible like comeback story that I think will get him an easy nomination. And I'm not surprised people have him winning. But I think based on the strength of the movie itself, that could be a tougher task than maybe people think at the moment, because I think Banshees and Elvis will be higher nomination total movies.
Do you have Elvis in Best Picture?
Yes.
Okay. And not The Whale?
No. And nothing changed that watching The Whale.
Yeah, that didn't change for me either, although I can definitely see The Whale getting into Best Picture. I think this is another one that's gonna be polarizing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we already saw that based from like the festival reactions.
Yes.
And how it leaned more negative at Venice, but at TIFF it was more positive. And TIFF is a lot more, it's broader, the audience there.
I think if The Whale is going to get into Best Picture, they would have to continue to do a full court press on actually event in-person screenings with him there, because I think there is I don't know what it is. It's like a vibe around him, and that when you like he's like brightening up the rooms. And so
yeah, it's like everyone, like, I love Brendan Fraser, like,
yeah,
and I think everyone, I don't think there is a single person who is not happy for him.
Right.
So I think it definitely helps and he is willing to campaign. Like he's on the cover of GQ yesterday.
Yes.
Another one. And he's talking about like how he's going for it. He's just like Jamie Lee Curtis, not gonna be coy. And I think everyone is happy for him. And like it is the comeback narrative. And I think it does help, especially if you have like reservations about the movie, to hear him talk about it afterwards, if he is going to do like every single like screening Q&A after. And I think that's also like, like a lot of voters get starstruck, and so many people yesterday just went up to get selfies with the cast of Babylon.
Oh my god.
Just like descended on them. Like no masks.
No.
Gotta get that selfie for the gram. So
oh my god.
Yeah, they just want to be around celebs and like see and talk and like hear about them talk about their craft and everything. So
I would say like The Whale, I think a lot of the negative critical response was about it being problematic. I didn't get that watching it as much, but I was like, I think having him be the spokesperson, like he put a lot of care and thought into the performance, and you could tell, and respect into the role and to the character. And I think that would go a long way of like alleviating people's concerns if they were about like it being a mockery or like kind of like an ugly problematic thing, because he obviously cared so much about what he was doing. And it's it's a really good performance, and like obviously ticks off a lot of boxes. I'm like, I don't know if Austin Butler could win because I just feel like while I think Elvis will be really strong as a contender and I have him for Best Picture, I'm almost like, are they like with everything that's going on like industry wise, like Warner Brothers Discovery, where they're kind of, I don't know, they're just, you know, not as muscular as they have been in the past. Will they have enough wherewithal to make sure that he is being re-promoted here as its movie's
I
pretty
think
old?
Austin is fine for the nomination. Like,
Right.
it's fine. Like, whether he can win, that's a different story.
Right. And then
But
Colin, obviously, like you said, I think previously, like he won Best Actor at Venice over Brendan, where Brendan got like a 15-minute standing ovation. And I think if I was going to pick somebody in the end to win over Brendan, even though I have Austin in first at the moment, I would say maybe Colin actually does win. I could easily see
yeah,
that.
Colin would be my personal pick, and he still has a path to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna predict him right now, and I also don't like predicting my favorites. So
Right.
because it's partially hope dicting, and then there's just, my favorites never win anyway.
Right.
But there's also just a lot of other factors that go into this besides just whatever you like the most. And
Right.
like, I'm not a voter, so it doesn't matter. Who cares what I think? But yeah, I still have Colin in third. I mean, like, those are the top three.
Definitely the top
Basically.
three.
And like, I like Brendan is still in first, right? I think is he like way out in front?
I think he is. Let me look here. Hang on. I gotta reopen a window, Joyce. I'm sorry. Here we go. Let's see. And our combined odds. Let's see.
Yeah, like I like on paper, even before anyone saw a frame of the whale, he was being heavily predicted. And I think, sometimes people predict or react to a role more so than the performance.
Yes, definitely. This is one of those where I was like, you don't even have to, like, if people are going to be swept up in the Frasier songs, and he is winning by a large mark, like he is like a large.
If Film Twitter were Academy voters, he would win, like, landslide.
And you don't even, like, it's one of those where just like, yeah, like it's just people are going to be like, I'm just going to pick, even if you don't even watch, it's like, I mean, people watch the movie, we hope. But this is definitely one of those where people just be like, I love Brendan Fraser and I love the story and I know he's good in the movie because everybody says he's good. I got it. I'll vote for him. That kind of thing. I could see for less engaged voters, maybe.
Yeah. And then, he got a lot of, again, another round of positive press yesterday when all the pickups, all the aggregates about his quote from his follow-up GQ cover now, in which he says he's not going to attend the Globes if he's nominated.
And he will be nominated and probably will win.
It's interesting now because it really puts the HFPA as a whole, not individually, but like as a whole, in I don't know what's the word, like, just like a complicated position for them, because now I think whether he wins or loses, it's a win for him either way. Like, obviously, like, anyone who doesn't know, like 4 years ago in another GQ cover story, he said Philip Burke, a HFPA member, groped him at a Globes event in 2003. And then the Globes did not handle this press well. They did not apologize. They said they like investigated it, but said like Philip Burke just did it as a joke, which is, not the proper response. So they never apologized. And he says in the new GQ cover yesterday that they still haven't apologized. So he's not going to go. It's also funny because it was like last month or a couple of weeks ago when he and Darren Aronofsky were on the cover. Was it Variety or THR? Yeah. And then they asked him if he was going to go to Globes, and he said, like, I haven't decided yet. Ask me later. And like, when I read that last month, I was like, he's definitely going to do another GQ cover because that's where, like, it originally broke. So he did. But yeah, so like, he is totally within his right, and I completely respect him for not going and standing his ground. But now I think whatever happens, it's going to court another round of press. And like, the onus is on the Globes, but then it's like, if he wins, then you could be cynical and be like, oh, they're just trying to be remorseful and atone for past sins. Did he really deserve it? Did he really like the performance? And then, but if he loses and someone else wins, then it's like, oh, they're being petty because he's not coming to
Is
the
it
show.
punitive, right? Because he didn't come. It's definitely very. I don't envy that position at all, but I would say he probably will win. Honestly, I think, and I would not be surprised if he wins the Oscar in the end for Best Actor. And I think it is an irresistible story. Now we've seen like
narrative slop.
I guess the most recent one I would say, and it's a different kind of thing, obviously, because of the circumstances, but I would go back to like Chadwick Boseman and Anthony Hopkins. And that's what this could kind of remind me of from a Colin Farrell, Brendan Fraser standpoint, not to make it an apples and apples comparison, obviously, because they're way different. But it definitely feels like that kind of vibe where there is a clear narrative and a support online for one of these people. And while everybody loves Colin Farrell, which I think everybody loves Anthony Hopkins, they're not expected to necessarily win.
Yeah, and they were also the season-long front runner, who was winning almost everything.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think Hong Chow, I definitely think will get nominated. I don't have it in for screenplay, adapted screenplay. I don't have it in really anywhere else. So I have Brendan and Hong, and that's it, really, I guess.
Do you think Hong can win?
No, I don't. I don't think the movie will be strong enough, and I think there are just...
It'll be so weird if she wins and he doesn't.
That would be strange, and like that is an open category, but I feel like I don't think she would win. No. I mean, it would not totally shock me, but I don't think she would. I think it'll get, like, obviously get a makeup nomination, and it could even get visual effects. I mean, depending on how much they say, like, how much of it is visual effects versus how much of it is makeup and prosthetics. It seems like a lot of it is just makeup and prosthetics, but that is like, obviously, I think it will get in there, and it could probably win there.
In visual effects?
No, in hair makeup.
Yeah, hair and makeup, yeah.
And then like he could win. I mean, it would be like
that would be like the best actress route.
Yeah, because it'd be like, I think that's the most believable way to do this. And then like Hong and supporting
and
actress.
no best picture.
I don't think so. I just was
first since Jeff Bridges.
I don't think so, because I was just like, I think there are bigger movies, like louder movies to be in this, and then I just think, we kind of said it's an adaptation of a play, and I don't feel it makes any bones about being an adaptation of a play. It's not like expanding it really at all. They're all in one set, and it does feel more like people dinged women talking for this, even though it's like not a play.
I was like dying the whole time, because like I don't have any issues with it being all set in his apartment. It's completely fine. I do not care at all.
Right.
But it's just so hilarious that everyone was coming for women talking as quote unquote just woman talking in a barn, which is not that at all. Like there are a lot more scenes outside of a barn and women talking than there are scenes outside of his apartment in The Whale. Again, I don't care that it's all set in his apartment. It makes sense for the movie. It's supposed to be suffocating like that.
Of course.
But it's like, we know why everyone was using that to take down women talking. Yes. We know why.
And The Whale is much more stagey, I would say, in that aspect. Like it just feels at times, and I mean, again, because of the storytelling, it often, there are times in scenes where I was like, it literally feels like a filmed play.
Yeah, I mean, like it's supposed to be like that, and it's I think I'm more positive on its best picture chances than you are. Like I can definitely see it getting in because it's still open with the solid 10. I would say if it wasn't a solid 10, I would be like, maybe not. Yeah, but it's still open down there. Sure. And I can see the people who love this movie don't just love it because of Brendan. I think it is very emotional.
Yeah.
And I think like there are things that happen, like he's trying to reconcile with his daughter, Sadie Sink. And I think a lot of people either relate or respond to that part of it, and yeah, there's a lot of sympathy and empathy for his character. So right. I can see it playing well with that crowd.
I mean, I could see that too. I guess the other thing I was looking at, especially at the bottom. I was trying to think of when I'm like, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I knocked Tar out of my best picture list. I guess we could do best picture before we go into Emancipation trailer, which we're going to do next. But I was like, I don't have the whale getting in a lot of other places besides what we mentioned, but something like Avatar to me could get in more places. So I was like, from a tech standpoint, and obviously like best picture is the whole Academy. So I was like, maybe the whale will have some large support, but not as many of the branches being head over heels about it as like some of these other movies.
Okay, so then you took out Tar. Why?
So I took out Tar because of the same kind of thing. I really don't think, I mean, I don't have it in for director. I have Kate in, obviously, and then I put it in for screenplay, but I don't think a lot of the below the line stuff will get it in. And it does seem much more polarizing, I think, than critics maybe expected. Like you were saying, I think one of the people you were overhearing was not a fan.
It was the older gentleman. He loved Kate, but he thought he didn't know, what did he say? He didn't think it was about anything, and the
Right.
person he was talking to had not seen it yet and was like, isn't it about like woke culture and stuff?
Yeah.
So the older gentleman just did not understand the movie.
And
Yeah.
I get this sense just from, again, this is completely anecdotal and not a lot of people, but I'm like, I think older audiences, while it felt like a movie when I saw it that I was like, oh man, you know who's gonna love this? Old people. Because it's like just seemingly like set in a world of like classical music that I imagine old people like. I don't know. And then like, you know, like arty stuff and this and that. But I feel like people are like, the movie is not telling you what to think. And I think,
well, yeah, like we've talked about this before. Like
people
it
are not. So
you're
that's why
supposed to not figure it out, but you're supposed to come up with your own thoughts.
And I don't think people
want
like
to
that.
be told what to think.
And I wonder if it'll. So that's why I took that out. Now I have She Said In, which you could laugh in my face about. That obviously like has not really taken off, but I do think that's just like an incredibly watchable movie. And the more people I know who have seen it do really like it, and it just feels like a consensus mainstream kind of pick that, depending on how it runs and how they kind of take it from here. Now it comes out on Friday, could get in. I could easily see Tar getting back in, and I put Avatar in because I kind of was avoiding Black Panther and Avatar. And now that I've seen Black Panther, and while I think it's good, I was like, I don't think it would get in. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a better, I mean, Avatar might also not be good, but I think Black Panther to me has a lot of elements that would get in, but his best picture probably not going to take off. Avatar maybe could sneak in there.
Yeah, I didn't put Black Panther in, like I said last week.
But yeah, the bottom.
I already had Avatar in before that. Like Tar, I think is fine. Like I agree. Like there are people who obviously are not going to get it, but I think just with the way everything has unfolded and the fact that it is a hard 10, like I think it's fine. I have it in 6. Like I don't. Like again, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like no one is ever talking about it winning Best Picture.
No,
and like it's gonna have its passionate supporters.
It could, yeah.
Like that, like I don't know if I would predict it in a field of 5, but in a field of 10, with us trying to figure out who's gonna get the last 3 slots, like why not?
Definitely, why not? And like I said, I could easily see myself putting it back in. My bottom 3 is Avatar, She Said, and Elvis in ascending order. I have Avatar in 10, She Said in 9, Elvis in 8.
And also the thing is, it's like, even though like Tar is not craft heavy, so it's probably not going to get a lot of below the line nominations. I think it should get into sound. It deserves to get into sound, but that doesn't mean that people in those branches don't respect or love the work. Fair. Like they could be voting for it. It's just not going to have enough votes to get in over something like Babylon for production design. You know,
I think one movie do you have Glass Onion in?
No, I haven't put that back in. I love Glass Onion. We'll talk about that next week. I jumped Glass Onion way up on my list. I don't have it winning, obviously, but I think that is a major factor. And I know people were like kind of poo-pooing it, you know, in the general consensus or whatever. But I was like, I actually think it could definitely get in. And then the bottom 3, like I said, I think Elvis is pretty set. Babylon's in there at 7th.
She said in Avatar, I could see being Tar and the whale. I mean, like, if there's any number of different ways this could go at the bottom, like, would not shock me if Tar and the whale are in, especially the whale.
I still have Elvis in, but I can be easily persuaded to drop it. I just haven't yet.
Right.
I mean, I really, the only reason I have it in is for Austin Butler. I mean, I could easily swap that with the whale.
Yeah. Same.
For Brendan Fraser.
Sure.
So, because I already have Colin in there with Banshees. But I still have Triangle of Sadness in there just because.
Hanging in. I would say the other thing I would say for a whale, like I said, I think I was just trying to, when we were watching, I was like, how would this play at home? I think it's also not a great screener movie, but maybe it would be. I don't know. Like, I just think it's one of those movies that people need to see in the theater. And if A24 continues to do a great job of getting people into screenings and events, that will help it go far to getting a Best Picture nomination.
It's definitely not watchable like Babylon is.
Yeah.
It's a tough sit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see if you're not into it, I can see you turning off the screener.
So that's what I'm like. That's why the reason I don't have it in too for Best Picture, because I'm just like, I don't know how it's gonna. How will people? How are they watching it, and how does that factor into?
I mean, I think you could. I think so. I don't know. I think it might be a high priority screener because of just the buzz around Brendan. Like, I want to see him in this role. Like, I've heard so much about it. He's playing in this morbidly obese man. So I think it will be a high priority screener. So then, yeah, it's a matter of like, are they going to be into it? And is it going to be so hard to watch that they don't finish it?
Right. Kind of like the Till problem with like Daniel Deadweiler, maybe.
Yeah. But again, like maybe it's hard to watch for different reasons.
Right. So Joyce, Emancipation, Apple's, they're bringing it on. LA premiere, I think, is November 30th, perhaps. And then it's out in theaters. Can't wait for that big theatrical rollout on December 2nd. And then on Apple TV on December 9th. So on Tuesday, there was a big Vanity Fair feature with Antoine Fuqua. Interesting way it was done, because the writer is Chris Murphy, and he had basically said, like, the movie is almost impossible to watch if you read his lead. He's like, it's very violent and obviously like traumatic because of the violence of slavery and this and that. But like, that's the conversation that Antoine Fuqua was willing to have, and like depicting those acts of violence and why it's important. And I thought that was like a really thoughtful conversation, but I was like kind of surprised already that he was willing to go there. I mean, that felt like for one of the first interviews, I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Antoine Fuqua, at least, I thought, was like to take it, like to engage in the conversation, which I think a lot of filmmakers maybe would not have.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear they have spent months since the Oscars figuring out how to unroll this movie.
Yes.
And so I think this is all obviously calculated, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think this is what you do. You strategize and you plan. So, and I think they're just trying to use Antoine and like have him almost be the face of the movie, like in addition to Will, and get him out there ahead of all the inevitable reactions and takes about this movie and Will. So I think that's why he's done several interviews about this so far. So
he had and he mentioned,
and then but yeah, like he was asked like why do this now, like, you know, just like so in the same year as the slap, basically. And he was just kind of like, this story like needs to be told, like, and so that's like the kind of the narrative they're going with. It's like, yeah, the slap was bad, but slavery was so much worse, and we need to tell the story.
He has a quote here about when he gets asked about Will and the slap. He says, I have nothing but amazing things to say about Will Smith, genuinely. You can ask anybody that worked on the movie. They'll tell you the same. Nicest person I've ever met. Chris Rock, I know Chris. Chris is a good guy, too. This is Antoine Fuqua. I spent some time with Chris, and I think it's an unfortunate event. I hope we can move forward and get past it. And then he says, but you've got to remember, Will did a movie. The movie was supposed to end in October. but we didn't finish that movie until January because of a hurricane, the heat, COVID, a tornado, and 12 other things. It was just really crazy. It's really hard to release a character who's been brutalized and called the N-word every day, constantly every day, and still be the nicest person in the world, Fuqua said. That I know, so no excuses for anyone or anything, but I can say he's a good man, and I hope that the people can forgive him and that we can move forward. And I hope Chris and Will find a way to sit together publicly or privately or whatever and make amends. I think that would be an incredible statement. That's Antoine Fuqua.
That quote was incredible, because I was just like, so this movie made him slap Chris Rock.
And then Will Smith does not answer it, but he talks about like wanting to do the role. For me, the big takeaway, you have Robert Richardson in your cinematography nominees. It sounds like they are definitely focused on him, because every answer in this thing talks about Robert Richardson in a way that I've not seen a cinematographer get so much like hype since like a Roger Deakins movie. So it feels like we're definitely like in trying to get another Roger Richardson.
What about Bob?
Like, love Robert Richardson, obviously. Incredible, like iconic cinematographer, but did the desaturation, so it's mostly black and white with like splashes of color here and there. And yeah, like that's definitely like one of the angles. And I guess we'll see. I don't know. I don't have it in anywhere, this movie yet. I don't know.
Would you? So I feel like if the slap hadn't happened and everything else this current season played out the way it did, I would probably have Will in my 5.
Absolutely. I mean, especially the way it is. There's not a lot of. I mean, I have
like
Tom Cruise.
The Afterglow nomination.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And I would have Will in my top 5 for actor. If this was just a regular thing, if the slap didn't happen and whatever, I would have Will in for actor. I would have Fuqua in my like 6 to 10 range for director. I don't think he would get in, but I think like this is definitely like his moment of like making a play for awards as a director, even though I think he's made like incredibly good movies. Like I really like Antoine Fuqua movies. He's like a great director, but not maybe taken seriously as an Oscar player, obviously, in the past. But I think this would be like maybe the chance to get him in. I think it would be on the back end of the best picture range, sight unseen, but just because of the topic matter and the way obviously it doesn't shy away from the violence, I think would be like I mean, like that whole interview is like about how traumatizing it is. I don't know if
this movie will also be a tough set.
Right. So I'm like, I don't know if we get in for picture, but I think it would be like on the list. And then I don't know from there, maybe in
they show more. They show Ben Foster in this trailer.
So. Ben Foster was like probably would be a person maybe to consider, but I don't think it would have gotten like. I don't feel like this. My personal opinion is that if none of this had happened, this movie just existed like without any of the baggage of like Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, it would not have been like a 10 to 12 Oscar nominations movie.
Probably not. I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it, so it could be amazing. But yeah, I don't just like from the. I don't know. I would feel like it would be like it would get in different places, but I definitely would have Will in if it was not for the slap.
Yeah. So I don't even know where in my head I would have him right now, because I feel like I think most people have the same 4, and then it's just like who you're going to put in the 5th slot.
I mean, I've seen people put him in, like certainly.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you have Tom Cruise. I still have Hugh Jackman. There's Diego. There's Paul Mescal, Film Twitter's favorite.
I mean, I think Diego and Paul Mescal would be like really cool, and like Gabriel LaBelle would also be really cool.
Yeah.
But
and then I don't know who else is there.
Like Jeremy Pope maybe for Inspection, but that hasn't really taken off.
Into like the Paul group with me,
right?
Yeah, and then I guess Will. I don't know.
Yeah,
like, but yeah, like I feel like this would have been an easy Afterglow nomination for him. Like I don't think he would have won back to back.
No,
but I think it would just been like, wow, like it's sort of like, he talked about this last year during the press for King Richard, like how like now he's in his 50s and everything, and then he's just doing these different types of movies and stuff. And yeah, so I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Joyce, we could wrap here with some listener emails. So you can email us, and people are emailing us, which I am heartened by. And they're not.
You get like another 3 emails.
Yeah, and they're not like, go F yourself. or come send me $25,000 and help me, spam. No, so we have a couple here I want to read. First one comes from David. He writes, "Hey, Joyce and Chris, it's David. Why do you think nobody is mentioning Timothée Chalamet for Bones and All for Best Actor?
Your favorite movie. Stump
Do you
for him
think
right
it will
now.
get in for Best Picture?" Well, Bones and All comes out Friday, Joyce, on November 18th.
They're on the cover of THR.
So I've talked to like Luca Guadagnino for this movie, so I'm obviously in the tank for it. I just think the graphic nature of the cannibalism would be a turn. If the old man who sat next to you was turned off by an elephant shitting on somebody, I can only imagine what he would say in the scene in Bones and All when Mark Rylance is like eating a woman who's dead. So I just don't think that.
At the various screenings I've been to in the past month, several people have talked about Bones and All, just casual conversation.
Yeah.
And all of them have just been like, holy shit. Like some of them were like, I was not prepared for that. I thought I was gonna vomit.
It's like, I mean, like, it is definitely not for the faint of heart. At the same time, it's another movie that I think will, like, I think that movie will have a very long legacy and people will really remember it and like it. But it's like for awards voting, it's a tough sell, I think.
So I thought about putting it into adapted.
I have it in adapted. And I think
I might do that. Actually, I don't know. I thought I have not done it that category is so open, so it would be like the cool nomination.
Yeah, I have it in for adapted screen, but David could get.
Because
I'm going to say it. I interviewed him, and I've said his name wrong every single time, and I'll probably say it wrong again. It's David. It's like Mechanic Kajanik. I'm sorry, David Kajanik. But I have him in. I thought Timothée Chalamet is amazing in it. I really loved him. It's definitely a borderline performance because it's Taylor Russell's movie. She's like clearly the lead. I think I can make an argument that it would be he's more realistic because the category is so slim, as we've discussed, but he won't get in. And she's amazing in the movie, but like Best Actress is like 10 deep with like some of the biggest heavy hitter actresses in the industry. So I don't think she would get in, obviously.
I see it doing I could see it doing well with like critics.
Yeah. So. I could see Luca winning like a Best Director award from critics groups. I mean, like it's very much a auteur driven movie. Like it's so Luca. And
I mean, it would be totally cool if somehow Mark Rylance got in for this movie when everyone has been predicting him to get in since his win for all these other babier movies.
Yes. The other one I would think, other thing that's possible is score is it's a Reznor Ross joint.
And you did not know they did.
I did not know they did it. And there's an original song that's great. I could see getting an original song, honestly, and score. I don't think those are like hard to imagine, but they are competing against themselves in score for Empire of Light, which is a much more traditional mainstream movie for awards voters, probably, and like a much more.
It's easily digestible, no pun intended.
That's it, an easily digestible score. Honestly, it's just like way more down the middle. Like the Bones and All score is like much more. It's like very melodic, and then also like has an undercurrent of like evil, basically. So it's a good movie. It's like of the movies I've seen this year, that's one of the ones I've continued to think about. It's like I cannot get some of this stuff out of my brain, even if I wanted to. So I was just like, it is definitely like a very good.
Also, the funny thing is, it's like another one of the reactions to that I've overheard at screenings. We should make that a hashtag. Like people also like confused about how it ends, and it's like not confusing. I don't think
it's not. And you texted me that yesterday, and we're not going to spoil it because it's not out yet. But the person who you were talking about overhearing definitely did not watch the same movie I did. He had a different ending.
Just like we're not paying attention. But then like it's just I mean these are possible voters.
Possible, at least in some capacity.
Don't know what happened in the movie.
They're in a nom-com, Joyce, wherever that is.
This person was not a nom-com because no one said yes to that woman's question of being in a nom-com. But I don't know what else they're voting for, so like who knows. But so that was, I don't know. They didn't understand the ending, I guess.
No. And then the last one, Joyce, we have here from Grant, who writes, I have a question for Joyce and Chris. Do you think Causeway's Brian Tyree Henry could be this year's stealth winner for Best Supporting Actor?
Winner? Oh my gosh. I mean, I would just be happy if he got in.
I think so too. I don't think he could win because he would be a lone nominee, basically, like we've talked about.
Yeah, like let's just concentrate on getting him in first.
I feel like I let him down because I took him off and put Brad Pitt in.
I mean, like look at this. Your Causeway love affair just lasted,
I love Causeway.
Like 2 weeks.
And I love Bullet Train. And they're both in Bullet Train, Joyce. Brian Tyree Henry and Brad Pitt. And they're great together in Bullet Train. Can't we just add another person in that category so we can get them all in?
No, because I am not about that life. I already hate that Best Picture's at 10. Like, I hate like the Emmys expanding everything, the proportional.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I like the exclusivity. It makes it hard. You have to make a choice.
Yeah, it should be exclusive. And then
yeah, it is. No, I know.
Yeah, like the Grammys with like 10 nominees. I'm like, why? No.
Oh my God.
No, too much nominees. Too much movie, too much nominees. But yeah, Brian, love him in Causeway. So good.
He's so good. I'll put him back. Maybe I'll put him back in next week after I get off of Babylon Train. Put Brian back in.
Like
put Eddie Redmayne back in.
Probably get some like critic stuff, and
I'd be curious to see. We'll get like the first little. So like I think the Gotham Awards are the 28th. Is that right? And he's nominated there. And obviously that's a combined category with actors and actresses. And then we'll have New York Film Critics Circle after that and like start getting these critics groups. I definitely feel like some of my movement here will change based on that. Not that those groups are very reliable indicators, but like we said, if like Brian Tyree Henry wins a couple of like major critical prizes, I think he will be taken more seriously as a contender and people will like kind of seek that movie out more seriously, hopefully.
Sure. But like, yeah, it ultimately doesn't really mean anything. Like it's great for these people to win stuff, but there could still just be the critical and industry.
Right. But maybe the industry will pay attention, I guess is my point.
I mean, I do, like we've mentioned this before, like he does feel like someone they're just waiting to nominate.
Yes.
Somehow. And I don't know if this is the vehicle to get it done for him. It's so small, but it's so good.
So good. If you haven't watched Causeway after 3 weeks of us just like saying how you should watch Causeway, please watch it. You can watch it literally right now.
You know, the double nominees in this category should be him and Russell Harvard.
Be really good. Never happened. Who's a better one scene role?
Oh my God, who are all the one scene wonders this year? Russell Harvard. I mean, Judd Hirsch has 2 scenes really.
It's really like Judd Hirsch, Samantha Morton, and she said Samantha Morton
in The Whale.
In The Whale. And like Russell, there's really nobody in Babylon that has one scene. Like Gene, obviously, like we said, has more than one. Toby, I could say we could put Toby in there.
Oh, Anthony Hopkins in The Sun.
And Toby.
Yeah, Toby. Well, that's 2 scenes, really.
It's like still one kind of one. They're 2 locations, but it really is one scene. I don't know. I'm like, that should be a category. If we were doing new categories,
that could be since they already merged sound, we'll add this 24th category.
It would be good.
They're not going to add stunts or casting or anything.
No, they should add all of this, I think. Joyce, you could if you're watching this, if you made it this far, you could email us at slugfests@goldderby.com and we'll try to answer your questions. Next week, Joyce, we're going to talk about Glass Onion.
Loved it.
Can't wait to talk more about it. But I guess we'll talk to you then. Let's see you. Bye.